Nurses who had to ask the famous intimate history question, what was the best answer you got? Story 1. When I was in year 7, probably 11 or 12 years old, I had broken my foot in a way that needed a minor surgery, so my cute 20-something nurse was asking me the pre-questions with my dad. When she got to the personal part, she asked if I wanted my dad to leave the room. I said no because whatever. When she asked if I was active in my private life, I turned to my dad and said in a loud whisper, I want her to think I'm cool. Story 2. I told my doctor back in high school that I wasn't active in my private life, and she said, and you go to high school? I should play the lottery. Story 3. Encyclopedic was the reluctant response a nurse friend once told me she received from the wife of a well-known local Baptist minister. She was well into her 70s and had recently celebrated her and her husband's 50th wedding anniversary. When asked to clarify, she admitted to being unfaithful to her husband with over 1,000 men and several hundred women. Her most recent escapade had been the previous day. See, Baptists, you start by discouraging certain kinds of dancing, and before you know it, you're creating, well, frankly, awesome 70-something women who know how to get their nasty on. You go, Granny! Story 4. As a student, I was working in a rural, underserved community hospital and had a 13-year-old patient come in with her mom for lady bits smell, which she said people noticed at school. I then proceeded to ask about carnal HX. Patient gave me permission to ask in front of my parents. I asked if she was active in her private life and she said no, well, with my hairbrush. Mom seemed to have been well aware of this and then began describing her daughter's lady bits smell as well as discharge in great detail. Read the first sentence as undeserved community hospital. I was like, dang, how terrible these people are not to deserve a hospital too. Story 5. Not a nurse, but I work in a hospital, and this story was too great to pass up telling. So, I watch cardiac monitors for a living. We had this 18 to 21-year-old female who didn't remember the exact age, but she was in for asthma problems, and we also watched 2. So apparently this girl was from a very religious family and told the nurses and doctors that no, she was not active in her private life and never has been. She was going to a local college and was brought in by who we were told was her cousin. She gets admitted. About 2:30 in the morning, her heart rate goes up to like the 150s, 160s, and her O2 us at like 85%. That's really bad for anyone when they are supposed to be asleep and at rest. So I got up and ran to go check on the patient. It turns out her cousin stayed the night. So here I come bursting into this room with like 2 nurses while this girl is like eyeballs deep on her cousin's dong, and when the door bursts open and the lights go on, he gets startled and jumps forward and causes her to immediately vomit all over him. I turn to the nurses and say, well, at least it wasn't a cardiac event, and leave so I could fall to the floor laughing. And I believe that she checked out of AMA after that. Sounds like it was a cardiac event. A good BJ comes from the heart. Story 6. Not a nurse, but I was in the room when they asked my grandma if she was or had ever been violated. Her reply, no, but it sounds like a lot of fun. She passed the next day in surgery. Rip Granny. That was a roller coaster ride of emotions. Rip your granny too. Story 7. I had a nurse ask me if I was active in my private life. I told her I was not. She said she would put me down as not currently. It was nice of her to be so optimistic. Hey, you should be optimistic too, assuming you want an active personal life. Confidence and moderation is one of the most attractive qualities in a person. Story 8. Went to the medical center for scabies, so I really just wanted my prescription and went. Filled out the "What protection do you use?" section with being 4 hours away from everyone willing to frick me. Nurse did not approve of me being a smart butt. Story 9. So I was taking care of a guy who had an infected wound on his dong. He didn't get it checked out right away, picked at it, and tried to take care of it without having to see a doc because, of course, that's embarrassing to a lot of people. Finally, he realized things were not going well and he ended up admitted to the hospital with a horrible wound. Bad enough, a surgeon had to go in, remove some dead tissue, and we, the nurses, got to change the dressing twice a day. This wound was the type that had to have gauze placed in the wounded bed, called packing. It's painful and uncomfortable for patients no matter where the wound is, but you can imagine how this poor fellow felt about it. He told his doc he wasn't active in her private life. So the night I'd take care of him, as I'm doing the dressing change, I ask him if he has any questions. Eventually, he'll go home and have to do that himself, so while doing wound care, I typically narrate what I'm doing and make sure patients can ask questions. Because of the nature of this wound, I had premedicated him with some IV narcotic, so he was a little loopy. He tells me he just can't figure out why he has this wound, so I start going through some standard questions. Do you have any other infected wounds? Are you around anyone who has infected wounds? Come to discover, he had been regularly getting some hand jobs from a gal who was a M-head and who had some open wounds on her face and forearms. I told him that's where he likely got it from, and he responded, but it wasn't rubbing my dong on her arms or her face, so I said, no, but she probably touched or picked at those sores before she jerked you off. If she didn't wash her hands well between touching her sores and giving you a hand job, she spread those germs to you. He had no clue. He had no idea he should have included this information in his private life history, and he had no practical understanding of how germs are spread. But please remember the entire scene. I've got this guy's dong in my gloved hand, cleaning and packing this bad wound that doesn't smell great, has a little yucky drainage, and I'm discussing jerking off and hand jobs. I'm down within a foot or so of his dong because his wound tunnels a bit, and I've got to use a Q-tip and delicately stuff this gauze tape into a sensitive area. I'm a moderately attractive gal about his age. I wasn't embarrassed. I'm a matter-of-fact sort of person, and I wanted this guy to understand how to take care of himself and stay clean. He wasn't embarrassed. He really wanted to understand, and he was also high on fentanyl. But it was a little absurd and made me laugh in retrospect because assume most people don't handle other people's genitals or talk about hand jobs at work. Well, I clearly talk about hand jobs at work because here I am right now narrating a story about hand jobs. However, handling other people's genitals is something I just do for free, so I guess we're different there. Story 10. When I was volunteering in the ER for my senior capstone project in high school, one of the nurses asked me to come help with a patient. It was a guy around my age, 17 to 19, and his mother. His mother was obviously very worried, helicoptery, and her son obviously had pain in the crotchal region. He apparently would never answer the private life history question, and the nurse bet it was because of his mother. The nurse said to me quietly as we walked to the room, "Distract the mom any way you can." So we come into the room and the nurse starts to take vitals and explain that I am a volunteer pre-med student. She gives me a look that I take as my cue and starts giving the mom strange looks. Finally, she notices me and asks if everything is all right. The first words out of my mouth were, "Have you gotten that mole checked out?" She, of course, starts to freak out, and I say that I will take her to the dermatology clinic to set up an appointment, and that the nurse will take good care of her son. So he got the questions finally answered when we left. Apparently, the kid had bad luck with a three-way and now had crabs and chlamydia. Story 11. Young girl comes in for a pregnancy test. Was he wearing protection? He? Your partner? Oh, no, I had fricked a girl. Physical ed failed in a new direction today, ladies and gents. Story 12. I recently told my doctor, I've been sleeping with the same man for a long time, but he's been sleeping with everyone else, so I guess I'm a S by proxy. She gave me lots of tests. Story 13. When I was in nursing school, we had these questionnaire things we had to ask our patients for homework. Most of the questions were pretty simple and basic, like family medical history or what current medication they were taking, etc., etc., etc. And it was designed to get us used to asking questions and to begin to develop rapport with the patient. Well, since this was my first year of nursing school, I still felt a little awkward asking the fricking questions and was nervous when I came around to these questions when interviewing an 85-year-old man whose wife was sitting right next to him. The conversation went a little like this. Me. So, sir, some of these next questions may be a bit personal, and if you are too uncomfortable answering them, you can just tell me and we can move on. Internal me. Please be uncomfortable. Oh, please, oh, please, oh, please. Him. Sure, go ahead. You need to know all this stuff for your career. Ask away. Internal me. Dang. Usually there were 5 or 6 questions that I would ask, but today I could only get past this one question. Me. Okay, sir. Are you and your wife still active in your private life? Him. Looks up at me, then the ceiling, then to his wife and says, Sweetie, how would you describe our private life? Wife, without missing a beat. Oh, probably that you jumped on a wild hog at the ripe age of 19 and are still hanging on for dear life. Then she leans closer to me and whispers, I try to buck him off every night, but he keeps hanging on. Then she winks. I almost died of laughter. Best response ever. Life goals. That might be one of the best couples I've ever heard of in my life. The fact that they almost have that down as a routine they do together is something I hope my partner and I have when we're old and horny. Story 14. Work at a children's hospital is usually not that important since most of my patients are in diapers. We had a 14-year-old with multiple STDs. Thankfully, all could be treated with some antibiotics. When asking her private life history, she couldn't remember all of them, but there were at least 9 partners. The weird part was her mom wanted us to talk about medical information outside the room so her precious angel wouldn't be corrupted with all the adult talk. We informed her that we already crossed that bridge. I didn't really mean to post this so people could S-shame a girl, more to talk about how our physical ed is lacking in this country. If she wasn't so afraid of her daughter hearing about fricking, maybe she could have talked to her about how to protect herself from STDs. Not a nurse, but the best response I've heard to this question was from a quiet guy in my freshman college English class. Somehow our discussion on vaccines led to this topic, and he told a story about his doctor asking if he was active in his private life. His perfect response was, "Bro, I'm not even socially active." That is an A+ answer to a question I didn't think anyone could ace. Story 16. I'm a hospital corpsman, Navy medic, and I had this older retired salt dog as a patient a while ago. His wife had passed away, but I didn't know that. When I asked if he was active in his private life, he said, "Well, no, for 2 reasons. I'm married and she's dead." Not that that would change a thing, though. I felt terrible, and then he just started laughing and told me not to feel bad. Seriously caught me off guard, though, crusty old bastard. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. Story 17. Took care of a post-op patient who had stuck dried kidney beans up his urethra because they felt good when they swelled up. Could usually pee them out, but this time they got stuck. Had to have them surgically removed. Cross his legs. He put dried kidney beans, one of the bigger beans even, up his urethra? I'm going to go into a corner and cry for a little while. Story 18. I was around 8 months pregnant and working as an ER nurse. I had a very round, beach ball-esque, obviously pregnant belly going on. A woman came in with the chief complaint of lower abdominal pain that came in waves and also reported experiencing a clear liquid discharge that she said felt like she peed her pants, but point blank denied being pregnant. She had a big sweatshirt and jacket on at first. She came back to me and changed into her gown with me in the room, and clearly she was visibly pregnant, and my immediate suspicion was that she was in labor. I point blank asked if she was pregnant, and she looked at me bewildered and stated she couldn't be because she hadn't fricked in over 6 months. I asked her when the last time she had been tricked, and she reported sometime in September, which was sometime around my own date of conception. Being that she's not grasping it yet, I point to her belly and then my own and say, "How long has your belly looked like my belly?" My hope is it would kind of be a look in the mirror wake-up call, but it didn't work. She said she had just been feeling bloated over the last few months. She didn't believe she was pregnant until the ER resident did a bedside ultrasound to find the baby's heart rate. She was in labor and went upstairs to L&D. Oh, and she had her 10-year-old daughter with her. No! She already had a kid and she didn't know? People really amaze me sometimes. Story 19. An anesthesiologist once asked me if there's a chance I could be pregnant. I snorted and said, "I wish." My surgeon cracked up. My response is usually, "My tubes are tied. I better not be pregnant or else I'm going to be peed." Story 20. Navy hospital corpsman here. After my ship pulled into Cyprus for a 3-day Liberty port, I had a line about 10 people deep of sailors and Marines and medical looking to see the dock. The first 2 presented with the same discharge and swelling and stuff, turned out to be a rather nasty clap/chlamydia combo, and when I dove deeper I found out they went to the same brothel. A little deeper and found they even saw the same girl. So 4 people in, same deal. When the next one walked in, all I asked with raised eyebrows, "Selena?" supposed lady's name, and with a subtle and ashamed confirmatory nod, they sat on the table ready for the dreaded bore punch. 5 out of 9 people I treated that day went to the same lady. Story 21. My doctor told me a story once, a bit off topic here, but oh well. Back when they first started performing vasectomies, doctors had to call their patients back for standard follow-up questioning a number of weeks after the procedure. He told me he got the same answers from all of the couples he interviewed. Any sensation change? No. Any performance change? No, etc. This went on and on. Until one day, he asked a couple if there were anything different after the procedure. Any changes at all? The wife said, yes, there is a huge difference since he had the surgery. My doctor was very surprised, and when he inquired further, the wife said, it tastes different. He said it was all he could do to keep from laughing as he made the note of seminal fluid tastes different after the procedure. Yes, it's like having a Bud and a Bud Light. Well, dang, and here I was hoping that after I got my vasectomy, it would be more like Diet Dr. Pepper. Same great taste, fewer calories. Story 22. My wife is a nurse and once told me about a guy who had injected creek water into his dong with an insulin needle. He heard that injecting water into your dong makes it bigger and erections longer lasting, so while he and his girlfriend were camping, they decided to try it out with bacteria-filled creek water. Apparently, it worked just fine for the first day, but after a couple days, his dong started turning colors and swelling. My wife said that by the time she saw it at the hospital, it looked like an eggplant with weird neon green pus coming out of the urethra. That's probably where they come up with the eggplant emoji. Story 23. Paramedic here. I once asked a 20-year-old female with abdominal pain, me, are you active in your private life? Her, yes. Me, any chance you're pregnant? Her, absolutely not. I could never be pregnant. Me, not all birth control is 100% effective. Her, mine is. Me, what kind of birth control is it? Her, lesbianism? I've given this response, went to get birth control to deal with awful period pain and told the nurse I'm a lesbian after twit tired of saying no to every birth control/pregnancy question. It was silent for the next few minutes because that seemed to suffice for answering most of the questions that were left. Story 24. Usually I just get asked if I want to become a part of it, but I did have one girl who told me that she was technically a virgin. When I raised an eyebrow and asked what her technicality was, she said she'd only ride back doors with her past boyfriend. Then I was asked not to tell her mom and dad. Oh, the joys of nursing. My sister's roommate in college was a pastor's kid and was known around campus for only riding back doors so she could still be a virgin. Dear weirdos, here's a message from the rest of us. The butt counts. Have a great day. Story 52. Medical school in Philadelphia. I was in surgery clinic and going through the review of systems, and like any good med student, covering every system possible as I was seeing this 72-year-old African-American guy. Any discharge from your dong, sir? With a smile, he exclaims, not in about 12 years. Took me half a second, then I cracked up and said, not that kind, sir, but you're hilarious. Story 26. Kind of off topic and not me, but here goes. My friend called the nurse hotline because she was having horrible menstrual cramps. You must be having a miscarriage, they said. I really don't think so, she replied. Are you active in your private life, they ask. Yes, I am, she said. Well, then you are obviously having a miscarriage, they insisted. I'm a lesbian, replied my friend. Oh, well, would you like to speak to one of our LGBT staff? Almost every time I go to a doctor, they make an unshakable judgment before I finish giving them all the relevant information. I mean, I suppose it's for comfort, but the idea of LGBT staff is weird when it comes to nurses. I'm sorry, sweetie, but I only know how hetero bodies work. I'm not even sure if you have the same organs. Story 27. This is how it went during my last physical. Nurse, are you active in your private life? Me, no. Nurse, really? She had a surprised look on her face, and I'm not sure whether I should feel good about myself or bad about myself. Story 28. I gave a new gyno one of her favorite responses to currently active in private life. I had recently started seeing someone, so we weren't quite there yet, so I said, outlook favorable. Story 29. Not a nurse, but I live in an area where a lot of youth get STDs/unwanted pregnancies at a very young age, to the point where several nurses awkwardly high-fived me in the hallway for not being active in their private lives. Because my nurse told all of the other nurses right after she stepped out of the room. Story 30. In med school, when we were learning to do histories, we were required to ask and document all questions, including private life history. This isn't that crazy, but there was a normal middle-aged lady that came in, and near the beginning she said she'd been married 18 years. When we got to the private life history part, I asked if she was active, yes, with men or women, both, and how many partners in the past year. 11. Okay then, open-minded I see. Swingers clubs and these kind of events are all filled with middle-aged couples looking to spice up their private life, which is understandable, I guess. Who doesn't like a good swing? Back and forth, another person pushing you a little harder each time, legs in the air. Yeah, I love the park, which is where we go to get together and frick other couples. Story 31. This is one of my favorite/least favorite scenarios. Me, when was your last menstrual period? Underage PR. About a month ago? Me. Okay, any chance you could be pregnant? PT. Extremely uncomfortable squirming and looking sideways at parent who is in the room with them. Parent. What? PR. No. Parent. What? Me. Okay. We'll do a test. It's always a bummer when it comes out positive. Story 32. I am a student nurse and a pharmacy technician, so I have had some pretty interesting conversations. One that I will never forget is where I was talking to a customer who was planning on buying a Plan B pill. Me. Okay, have you taken one of these before? Her. No. Me. Well, you are probably going to be pretty nauseated, but you have to keep it down because you cannot take another one if you throw it up. Her. Okay. Me. Total is around $50. Her. Oh my God, this stuff is so expensive. Me. She seemed around my age and had a really open personality, so I figured I could joke about it. Yeah, it sucks. That is why I always tell my friends that condoms are cheaper. Her. We did use a condom. Me, slightly confused. If you do not mind me asking, why is it that you're taking a Plan B? Her. Because, proceeds to explain with hand motion and sound effect, because the condom got sucked up. Me. Her. Me. Were you able to get it out? Her. Yeah, but, rather safe than sorry. Me. Fair enough. And the transaction proceeded like normal from there. Story 33. Not a nurse and did not take a history of private life, but maybe this counts. I worked in an infertility clinic. We had a young couple who came into the clinic to get pregnant. We could not find a cause for their infertility. Both were young and in textbook perfect health. We brought them in to give them the test results, all infertility investigations were normal, and to give them the treatment plan. The nurse saw them first and came out with an odd look. She said, "Just trust me on this, but you need to go tell them about the birds and the bees." I was all, "What the F?" And she said, "It's just a guy thing I have." So I did. I prefaced my talk by saying, "I'm going to tell you some information. Please save your questions till I'm done." I gave them detailed and explicit instructions on what they needed to do it. Both looked shocked at first, then deeply embarrassed. Neither met my eye, and both left the clinic without another word. Next visit, pregnant. I do not know what they were doing to this day, but all's well that ends well. This all happened back in the 80s, and since then I've switched careers, so no follow-up. Sorry, did not know this was in Catch-22 as I haven't read the book. I just thought it was one of the odd occurrences that I've encountered over the years. So that's what it's for. And that. So cool. Good to know the American intercourse education standards were as high in the 80s as they are now. Might also explain how I was conceived. Story 34. Ended up helping a high school wrestling team while doing surveys during medical audits. I had to ask a kid, "Have you had more than one intimate partner?" He responded, "Yeah, twice." Wait, you meant at the same time, right? I had to resist the urge to high five. This is gold. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.